Okay, well,
Are you comfortable there? You Carol and
I'm
Jen?
great.
You're right, fine.
He's asking if you want to as well.
No,
What?
that, you can handle it.
What did he say?
He said he's trying to make a joke, Bill.
I see.
Just run over our heads anyway.
All right. J. Barber. J. Barber. I've been asked to speak on 1962, and I will, if you don't mind, read what I wrote then about. Well, I'm sorry, when I put this book together. The year 1962 saw the truly significant event of these years. Beloved Barber inviting his Eastern and Western lovers to visit him over 7 days, 1st to the 7th of November 1962. Oh, Corinne, didn't see you come in. That was restricted, that was shortened to from the 1st to the 4th, but that was later. At the time, the original invitation was that. This invitation was given in March, and so there was plenty of time for eager anticipation, despair during the shortage of finances, joy when this was solved, much correspondence and many cables, and the seemingly more than usual drama of moving a changing, sizable group of men, women and children from Australia to India within a strict timetable. This was the task that Barber had given me. At first it appeared certain that the family and I could not go because of lack of funds. This was also so with another couple and their child. Then a message from Barber stated that both families had to come, and very fortunately, two dear Barber lovers, in my case, loaned me the money, interest-free, which I repaid when we came back over the years, and the other family was given a gift of the money. Barber also expressed the wish that all should return by the first available ship, but we were informed by the shipping company that this was impossible because the ship was absolutely full. So, goaded by frequent messages from Barber to do my utmost to effect his injunctions, I hounded and haunted the shipping office with almost daily visits, constantly asking for cables to be sent yet again to the head office in London, asking for the 23 berths. I'd go in the lunch hour. As it happened, I had to also work. And so every lunch hour, I'm sure the clerk would see me coming, the reception clerk, and he'd groan, "Oh God, here he is again." And at the 11th hour, isn't Barber marvelous? It's always, Barber loves the drama. He never makes anything simple. And it's finally dawned on me. I have a similar case at the moment over a trust matter, and it's so obvious that Barber is teaching a lesson. It takes time. It exercise patience. Our natural tendency, the mind is, "Oh, I want it now." I mean, hey, yeah, that's a good idea. Let's do it. And I'm sure I did tell the story perhaps on Monday, but let me tell this again. I found it so delightful. This this Baba lover from Lahore, that means Pakistan, meant that he was unable to visit Baba in India for a few years. And by the time he was able to get to India, he had a store of mental problems, all sorts of pressing problems that he wanted to unload on Baba. And so he eventually came, and of course he came into Baba's presence eager to have time with Baba. And Baba said, sit there for 5 minutes and then depart. He was staggered. And so, but in obedience to Baba, he sat for the 5 minutes and left, his mind in a turmoil. And then after he left, Baba sent him a message saying, come again tomorrow. So the next day he comes, and again, I mean, he's even more prepared. And Baba says, sit for 5 minutes and then depart, but you can come tomorrow. So in obedience, he sits. And of course, by this time, he's without sleep. All he can think about is the eyes were, this is how it was described. His eyes were red from lack of sleep. He was on his last legs, as it were, mentally, with all these pressing problems. And he comes, and Baba says, sit for 5 minutes. And he sat, and all of a sudden, everything disappeared. The whole lot, it was as though a wave had gone over his mind and washed it completely clear. And immediately it did, all the anxiety, all the stress and strain, physical, disappeared. And he said to Baba, oh Baba, what a butcher you are to carry out the slaughter so slowly. and yeah, I mean, it's just so interesting. And Baba said, the slow slaughter means that you reach the goal. A quick slaughter, you'll find you're just where you are again. Isn't that interesting? Yeah, I'm going to remember that next time I've got another problem. And of course, the key to it is patiently awaiting his will, because it's there. Whatever is meant to be will be. And again and again, we just have to relax on it and naturally remember him. Whatever else is going on, just keep turning to him and awaiting when he happens to solve those problems that are there in the back of the mind. My little trick with it is to naturally the mind thinks of it, thinks of particularly the immediate pressing problem. And my trick is, as soon as I start to think, I think, okay, I sort of trick it. I'll think about that later. Let me think of Baba. Or put one's mind into something else. Yeah, anyway. So, in this case, again at the 11th hour, the seeming impossible happened, and all gained bookings as wished by Baba. When informed, he sent me a cable. Victory indeed. Baba very happy with his dear worker. At about the same time, in reply to my saying that this visit to him, will mean a great deal to Australia, Francis reported that Baba gave a bright smile and said, yes, it will. The drama of the bookings was over, but more was to follow. Reg Paffel, Craig Woodford, Anthony Thorpe, who was from New Zealand, and I travelled by air because of work. And the main party, 23 in all, were booked to go by ship to Colombo and then by air to Bombay, so that all could arrive in Pune in time for a special program on the 31st of October. This had been requested by Baba in a cable. Baba wishes try all disembark Colombo and take plane Bombay. This was arranged, but just as the ship was approaching Colombo, China invaded India, and all Indian airline planes were commandeered by the government. I suppose you probably read about that. It was out of the blue, sudden. In the meantime, I had arrived in Bombay with the other three men in the early hours of the 30th. It was about 2 a.m. and I think we got to the hotel where we were staying about 3 a.m. And I wanted to get the three of them on the. By this time, when I got there, I was told that what had happened, and they were held up. Oh no, I'm sorry. No, that at about 3 a.m. I thought, okay, to make sure the other three get on the early morning train to Pune, to be there for the early morning session with Baba, I'll stay awake. So I stayed awake and got them onto the train, and then I heard this was the 31st when they was due to arrive, and I was then going to escort them up to Pune, and then discovered that the plane that they were booked on to come had been commandeered by the government. So that was the end of that. And then followed the next 2 days, frantic phone calls. I rang Guru Prasad, spoke to Eric to tell him what will I do, and of course, cables back and forth from Colombo. The group there landed in Colombo to me. And
so how many people did you have down in Colombo?
23.
Okay, and the rest were in...
There were 4, including myself, by air, and 3 had gone now on the morning of the 31st. Okay, as Barbara said, which the others would have if the plane had come in on the 31st.
So those 3 did get on the plane? Those 3?
No,
they didn't.
Diana,
Okay,
we
sorry.
travelled by air.
Sorry.
Sorry, my apologies for my wife. Cancel that. The 4 of us travelled by air.
Okay.
And
Before the Chinese invasion.
yes. Anyway, all right, let me continue. So, I stayed awake with the others. The others slept in case the hotel staff failed to call us in time. They departed as scheduled. It was only then that I discovered there would be no plane from Colombo. It was a tense day with no news of the group from Colombo, I'd forgotten that, and no way of my knowing where to contact them. In addition to all this, it was a public holiday, which made it that much more difficult. It seemed that I spent the day wandering around Bombay trying to get news. Then by phone I learnt from Erich, that's right, in Pune, that's Guru Prasad, that some of the group may have got on an international airline from Colombo, and that if so, they would arrive around midnight. I was told that Barbara wanted me to come to Pune the next day with whoever did arrive. Well, the flight did arrive. BOAC, I think, that was in brackets. And I found 10 of the group. Robert, who could only arrange that number of bookings with great difficulty, that Robert was he was sort of my offsider there, helping me in the organisation. And he had quite correctly selected the people who hadn't met Barbara already. So at least they would have more time with great difficulty, and decided to send in this first group, the 4 who had not previously met Barbara, and among the others, one who was older and another who was ill. The remainder had to stay on the ship and arrive in Bombay in the early morning of 2nd November. I had managed to hire a minibus at the airport, and after their 2 hours in custom, I took the small group to the hotel, where we checked in around 2:30 a.m. Because of the lateness of the hour, again I stayed awake in order to be sure of getting them to Barbara via the 8 a.m. train to Pune, which we reached at lunchtime. In the afternoon, Barbara called the men to see him at 3 p.m. at Guru Prasad, and the women about 5:30. I was with each group and introduced them to Barbara. It's interesting that the fact that I did stay awake for 2 nights, I've never done it. I never did it before, and I've never done it since. I like my sleep. But I just mention again how incredible, how somehow or other Barbara makes all sorts of impossible things possible. I can't imagine myself staying awake for 2 nights, but I did, and I was actually still functioning. Yeah, and I remember sort of, it was probably when I was writing this, and I was reflecting, a little seed of, let me say, a little seed of pride sort of entered my mind. Hey, isn't that amazing? That I did, and then. It was as though Barbara, naturally said, "Oh yes, really," and it came to my mind the incredible stories of the length of time that other ones, the Mundley, the close Mundley, but others had spent so long awake with Barbara. What was it? Over 14 days, there was one occasion where Bridle estimated that they had slept only 2 hours a night over the 14 days. And anyway, at the time, I remembered a story that Erich had told me. I don't know how it came up, but he said there was a time when I was awake for more than a week. He said, I can't remember actually the length of time, but I know that it was longer than a week that I was totally awake. And I was traveling, this is Erich, and he said I was traveling in a bus with Barbara. We were seated side by side in the bus traveling somewhere. And all of a sudden, the bus gave a jolt into a pothole or a bump, and all of a sudden, Erich awoke, realizing that he'd fallen asleep with his head on Barbara's shoulder, and what was even more embarrassing was that he had dribbled. How you in a deep sleep. He had dribbled and he sat up and said, Barbara, I'm so sorry, you know. And Barbara said, no, don't worry. Go back to sleep. So in obedience, Erich put his head back on Barbara's shoulder, you know, in other words, obeyed, and then said, Barbara, I'm all right. And he said that those, whatever it was, 10 minutes, whatever the length of time it was that he was actually asleep, he said, I felt as though he'd had a full night's sleep. Isn't it incredible? Yeah. And then he commented, he said, mind you, it was many of the time Barbara slept on my shoulder. Yeah, I remember the end of the story. But that sort of put an end to any feeling of pride about my 2 nights. I thought, yeah, I got a long way to go. Yeah. So I took the small group to the hotel where we checked in around 2:30 a.m. Because of the lateness of the hour, again I stayed awake in order to be sure. Oh, I read that. Yeah. The East-West gathering began the next day, 1st November. During the morning session for all the Westerners in the large main room inside Guru Prasad, Barbara called or spoke to various ones. It was mainly an informal time, with Barbara putting everyone, especially the new ones, increasingly at ease with him. Later that day, Barbara directed me to return to Bombay on the night train to meet the ship next morning and return to him with the remainder of the group. I slept on the train for a few hours and arrived at the dock about 5 a.m. to find the ship already berthed. I somehow got on board. I wasn't supposed to, but I did, and eventually located the group and, of course, my family among them. I learnt that customs inspection would not commence until 8 a.m. and with such a large group apart from other passengers, decided it would be impossible to get the 9 a.m. train in the morning. So we all settled down for a leisurely breakfast and resigned ourselves to another day without Barbara. I was in the middle of the meal when I suddenly felt as though I had received such a kick in the backside from Barbara that I jumped up and immediately leapt into action. That happened, that jolt, as though Barbara said, what are you doing? Get into it. Yeah, it has happened at other times, but this was a particularly strong one. I think he was annoyed that we were just having a leisurely breakfast. And with considerable bluff, cajoling, flattery and impatience, I got the group through the customs. You know, in other words, I got everyone down with their luggage so that on the dot of 8, we were the first to go through. And then we got into taxis to go to the railway station, although we nearly lost one which headed for Victoria Docks instead of Victoria Terminal, Victoria Railway Station. Anyway, we made the train with the men of the group throwing the luggage on board as it began to move out. I can remember it, you know. Isn't it funny? I mean, how the scene sort of comes back to me. Getting on the platform, and the women got in, and we had the luggage, of course, on a trolley. Or was it? Or we were carrying it. All I remember was, I can remember the train start, you know, those steam trains in those days, it went slowly. And so we were able, as the train was going along, we'd pile in the luggage and then go through the passageway and collect them in time after we got them all in.
Bill, was it third class in those days? Was there a class?
Yeah. Sorry, I can't read. I don't remember. I think we just went in and whatever carriage it was available. I probably sorted it out afterwards. We wouldn't have got tickets. I would have had to pay later, or when the conductor came round. Sorry, no recollection. Blank. Later I realised with some amazement, oh yes, that's all right. During one, yes, that was the story. So we eventually arrived at our home, the enfolding, sheltering embrace of his love. Barbara was at the time in the midst of the afternoon session with Eastern and Western lovers both present. But it was the Easterners' opportunity to individually meet Barbara and be embraced by him, as it had been the Westerners in the morning. However, on our arrival, the file of Easterners slowly wending their way to his feet was momentarily halted, and joyfully, one by one, we all greeted our beloved and were enveloped by him. What actually happened was, I can remember so clearly. We came, the dais was here, and the crowd was there at Guru Prasad. About 5,000 Westerners and Easterners, and we came on the left onto the platform. Barbara was seated here, and on this side was Sutananda Yogi. He devoted to Baba, had his own following, and he went round India telling people about Baba. He was seated on Baba's right, and the ex-queen of Baroda, Shanta Devi, was on the left. And I was, of course, the last on the group of, there were 10 of us, I think 11 including me, including my own family. And I can remember I was at the last, and I can remember how happy I was watching Baba greet my family and greet the others, but I must admit my own family, and how Baba, caressed the children and gestured how they'd grown since he'd seen them last, and I, inwardly I was chortling. I was happy. So I'm the last, and I come up to Baba thinking, well, I'll get an embrace from Baba, and Baba's sitting in his chair like this with the two of them alongside, and
Rich wasn't there.
no, Erich was not there. There was no one there, as it happened at that point. And I come to Baba. I'm there, standing before him, ready, and Baba gestured like this. So I thought, oh, okay, he wants me to go to his feet. I'm only too happy. So I went down, put my head there on his feet, and just in case he didn't think I was sincere about it, I went full length. I did it full length, and I'm there, and nothing's happening. There's silence, and I don't know. Don't ask me how long it was. I mean, all I'm aware of is that nothing was being said. There was no noise, nothing. So I thought, I better get up. So I got up and looked at Baba, and again he went like this. And now, why? How did I know? I don't know. I immediately I turned to the yogi and to the Shanta Devi, the ex-queen. Yes, we're from Australia, from down under.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I mean, how did I? It's not something that I wasn't in the habit of saying that. Yeah, just a little example of somehow or other. I don't know. don't ask me how it's done, but Barbara sort of puts it into your head and it comes out. Yeah.
And they spoke English.
And both of them spoke English as it happened. But with the way Barbara beamed, and of course, you know, at the end of it, I just moved on. I didn't get my embrace, but I got to his feet. Yeah. Again, for me, the dominant impression of beloved Barbara was subtly different during this gathering. I'd already said about. In 1956, he was a loving companion. In 1958, a stern yet loving master. And now in 1962, a loving father. That's how I sort of summarized it, in a sense. During those days, Barbara virtually sat the whole time in a chair like a full, bright sun, beaming warmth and sustenance upon his large family. We had little personal contact with him, yet he seemed never absent from us. I'm sure his eyes touched each and every one from time to time, as they did me, giving each the assurance of an eternal bond with him. He did give some attention to Dennis Bryan and myself the first morning when he handed us the manuscript of the Everything and Nothing with his wish that it be published in Australia. It was not in the afternoon session, it was in the morning session with just the Westerners. And I can remember that Barbara was sitting there. We were all seated in the hall, not the big pandal that was out at the back of the house of Guru Prasad. And Barbara called the two of us to him. Dennis O'Brien was a doctor in Melbourne. He was the first person that I met, actually. He and his wife, I was taken to meet them in 1947. It was through meeting them that eventually I did attend a meeting and I was given the discourses. That was in 1947. But he naturally had some money and I had none. And so Barbara had been so arranged that Dennis was happy to pay for the publication of the Everything and Nothing, you know, the booklet of small discourses, messages. And I was to publish them in Sydney, which I did. It was the beginning of a whole new burst of energy, of activity in my efforts to spread Barbara's name and message in Australia. When we were not with Barbara, most of my time was definitely spent organising medical help for one or another of the Australian group, including the family. The main doctor I had contact with was William Donkin. And I remember to this day the impossibility of following his remedies for the three children, all sick at the same time. He gave Joan and myself 4 different medicines with varying vague times for them to be taken. It's a fact. I'm not exaggerating. It was quite incredible. I've never had a doctor like it. And so that in the end, both he and we knew the task was impossible. And he cheerfully walked out saying in clipped English tones, "Of course, I don't believe in any of this medicine." Knowing his intense love for Barbara and dedication to his service, it was obviously his way of saying that the children would soon be well anyway, and they were. The 3 of them got better. One delightful and impressive after-hours occasion was when the sizable family of Bombay Parsi lovers invited the Westerners to informal afternoon snacks. it was my first experience of how Parsis can all talk at the same time at full volume and yet apparently be able to understand and really communicate with each other. I fell in love with their lively, outgoing, expressive love for Baba, and I treasure my time I'm able to spend with Bombay and Pune Parsi and Irani Baba lovers. One other little occasion that I might mention was that, of course, as I've indicated, as I've said, a lot of the Australian group, the 10 that were late, they missed a full day with Baba, a day and a half actually. The afternoon of the 31st when we were all introduced to Baba, and then the whole of the 1st. And it was only on the second morning that we arrived. And so Baba sent me a message that because of that, that we were to, after the end of the East-West gathering, that the 10 of us, or 11 including myself, were to be with him at Guru Prasad the day after we had travelled to Mehrabad and Mehrazad. That was a thing arranged. Yes, I should mention that was arranged that everyone that were able to, unless anyone had to leave before, but otherwise we were all taken at different times in buses to Mehrabad, to his future tomb, the tomb shrine where his body would lay, and to Mehrazad. And the only thing I remember was me particularly loving Mundley Hall at Mehrazad. So maybe it was a premonition of the amount of time that I would subsequently spend there. But I do remember going in there and sitting. We all sat down for a while, and again, that is the incredible atmosphere.
So we did the Easterners.
No, the Westerners were the only ones that I'm aware of. Maybe the Easterners did, but we didn't. Yeah, no, well, I didn't. Yeah, exactly. No, probably it was only the Westerners. It must have been. Sorry, can't remember. But there wasn't anyone else. But we had by a matter of interest to those who know them, Irwin and Ed Luck. We had the two young ones with us, with the Australians, and also another young American, Will Files. Bill Files. Bill. He arrived, and so I made him an honorary Australian. I remember that. He was 18, like some of the Australians, and so we're still. Yeah, it's nice to think of that, and we all. But I remember Mundley Hall. Yeah. Anyway, so Baba said that we were to come and to be there at 9 a.m. at Guru Prasad. Now, I've always been very particular about about being on time. The time that was set by Baba.
Couldn't have been Bill Files because he's always talked about never meeting Baba.
No, he didn't. Oh, it was afterwards.
Yeah.
It was after. He didn't. No, I'm sorry. It was after, but he was with us. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. It wasn't Bill Files. It was 69.
Right.
Sorry. Cancel that.
In his dream.
In his dream. In my dream. That's. See, all right. It just shows my age. I'm getting I'm getting doddery.
We almost was there.
All right. Anyway, let me tell you the story because it's just an interesting one with regard to obedience. So I register the fact that we were to be there at Guru Prasad at 9 a.m. Okay. We're in a hotel, that is Joan, my wife at that time, and the 3 children and myself, a little distance from Guru Prasad. And I'm aware that time is getting on. In other words, it would take us a certain amount of time to get from that hotel to Guru Prasad, down the driveway, walk down the driveway to the palace, the small palace, and be there. And and I'm getting impatient. It was the time was 9 a.m. and I'm getting impatient, and I'm sort of trying to get them going. Well, any one of you who've had kids, sort of children, you know what it's like. And somehow or other, it just wasn't happening. And so I said, look, I'm going. Barbara said 9 a.m. I've got to be there. So I went off and got there at 9 a.m. or a bit before, and was seated. And I was seated, and Barbara came in and sat down. It was a smaller room, I don't know, 20 by 20, I would estimate, alongside the big hall of Guru Prasad. It was the, as it were, the Mandali hall of Guru Prasad while Baba was there. That was where he had the more intimate meetings with the Mandali, with his own Mandali, and with close Baba lovers that he would invite. And I'm sitting there amongst, I don't know, 30, 35, including the remainder of the Australians. They were there. And I'm sitting happily. I'm here, and Barbara's just sort of at a slight angle. And all of a sudden, he turned to me and looked. And all I can tell you was that look of disapproval, of unhappiness, of displeasure was such that, and I don't normally burst into I don't normally cry. And I tell you, the tears came. I hate to confess these things, especially on film. I wish I hadn't started this story. And I literally had tears streaming down my face. That look of Barbara's was such. Since that look, I can understand how those giants of close Mandali, when something happened and Barbara was unhappy with them, and obviously showed his displeasure, that they burst into tears. I can understand. And then Barbara gestured, "Where is the family?" And I said, "At the hotel." Yeah. And then he said, "Get them," and must have signalled Erich to make the car available, the car that was used by Baba when he was needed, and so there I was. I walked out with tears streaming down my face, and still upset even when I got into the car and having to wipe them in front of a driver. I'm adding a bit of colour on the embarrassment that I had. But that was a beautiful example of the impossibility of obeying Baba. If I had waited, we would have been late. And Baba would said, I said 9 a.m., and we wouldn't have been there. but it was so interesting to see that look, how far it, what a difference that look was from the look of the beam that he gave me, you know, in earlier when in greeting me, and yeah, it's again again a story that reminds me the contrast of what we saw in the Darshan and the Sahabas programs, and as it were behind the scenes. And that was on his birthday in 1967, when I was there with him at Mehrazad, and it was secluded. There was only it was a birthday held with only the women mandali. He was with them at 5 a.m. and the men mandali and myself there with them. We met in Mandalay Hall at 5 a.m. and we greeted Baba 7 times as we do now, and said the prayers. And then it wasn't until 6 a.m. that Baba appeared, and Baba, I can remember him coming into the hall with a shawl round. It was a cold morning, 6 a.m. It was cold. Not that cold, but cold enough, and Baba had a shawl round.
It's okay.
And as he was supported, you know, he would have his hand on Erich's arm, walking to his chair. With us all standing waiting. The hall had been decorated, and as he came, he gestured that all his birthday meant that he would be woken early and have his face washed. I remember that. It was so beautiful. It was so human, so natural. Like, you know, yeah. As one gets older, one finds he was physically older, and so yeah. But during the morning, okay, I'll skip there for the moment. What else happened? But
also we have to get. What about getting back to the hotel with the kids?
You forgot about that.
I'll forget that.
Okay.
Yeah, that another
We'll finish
something
that.
happened, Diana. You've got to cut out a lot of this film. And and in the morning, we were there in Mandalay Hall with Baba, and Baba was listening to the numerous letters and telegrams, the cables and messages that were sent from all over the world, and the Eastern and Western, for his birthday. And in the midst of it, it was, I've forgotten who, Alabar may have been, came in and said something to Baba. And it turned out that an elderly cook, she was quite an elderly woman, Indian woman, that had been a cook at Mehrazad for years, had recently, last few years, been at Mehrabad. And although Baba said to her on each birthday not to come and greet him on his birthday, she still did, and she would walk the distance from Mehrabad in the morning to Mehrazad to wish Baba happy birthday. And Baba, okay, you know, she's come again. I can remember. Now, there is Baba sitting with a neck brace on him. His skin was like parchment. I mean, it was, although when I kissed him for his birthday, on his birthday, it was like the skin of a baby. It was absolutely, there was no colour. It was, it was, what, how do you know, just completely white. And again, as there was always that air of pain that he would never allow to show to that it disturbed in any way the work that was being done. But it was there. You could sense it. And so the neck brace came off, and then I saw what Erich meant when he tells the story. It's on the tape, one of the tapes. Erich says how he would, at the end of a Sahabas, at the end of a darshan program, at the end of gatherings, he would be with Baba afterwards, and Baba would say, "How was it?" And Erich said, "Oh, they loved you. You know, they commented how beautiful you looked, how healthy you looked, how so vital, you know, and all these words, and I saw how he was afterwards, how the contrast, how he was, the contrast to that, to how he appeared to those who had come to be with him for a day or a few hours, and how Erich said after a number of occasions, finally he couldn't contain any longer, and he said, "Baba, but in reality, we know how you are. We see what your condition is." And Baba says, "Yes, that is your lot. Those who are close to me, those who are close, they have to tend my physical body. They see how I am, and those who come for a few hours or a few days, and they see my divinity. They are carried along with the image that I have for them. But the time will come when, after I've dropped my body, those who had not seen me, who had not seen me, would long for my physical return, and you who had been with me, looking after my physical body, would see my divinity reflected in their eyes. Yeah. Anyway, and so that was that I did see on that occasion what Baba did. The neck brace went off. The structure of the face, it just seemed to change, and it was almost as though there was actually even a little colour in his cheeks. It was quite amazing how all of a sudden he was the Baba that I remembered from the Sahabas program, and then he spent, and at that time, as it happened, he gestured to Francis and I that we could go out for that little period and have a smoke. I have to confess that. I mean, that just suddenly came to me. I remembered now that we, and then she departed, and we came back in, and the neck brace went on, and Baba went back to that state that I was particularly conscious of for those 14 days that I was with him. Yeah. Oh, 5 minutes
Getting
ago.
back to the hotel, you know, during the
Oh yes, I got back, I went in the car to the hotel and I ran up the stairs to the second floor where we were, the room we were in. And I said, Barbara sent the car for you. Oh, they were immediately ready. 2 ups. They ran down I remember this excitement of the 3 of them. Wacko, a car, Barbara's car. Yeah. And that was that. I took them there and we all settled down for the remainder of the session. I was still occupied thinking of the earlier part of it. Yeah.
And then you still had a day or so. The next day you had to say goodbye.
Oh yes, and then we said goodbye to Barbara. We went to we went with the ones that did remain around. Of course, the local Barbara lovers and Bombay Barbara lovers. We returned to the tree where Barbara John used to sit, and that was the tree that Barbara would sit under before departing, being driven back to Marizad. And so we were there to see him, the farewell, him go off in the car. At the time, of course, I was occupied again with the group, but also with the family, and I was aware that I had a whole new task in front of me, and that was the publication of the Everything and Nothing. I was so happy. It was a wonderful time for me because it gave me up to that time and beyond it. I was not a talker. I was not accustomed. I was brought up in what you might call, if Anne will forgive me, an English fashion. And we didn't, so it's Anne, isn't it, there at the back? Sue, not Anne, I'm sorry, Sue. Sorry. Sue. I was brought up in a loving family, but we never discussed. We weren't in the custom to discussing our thoughts and feelings. My parents met Barbara, but to my regret now, we never talked. Well, how was it for you?
Yeah.
What did you? And I remembered my father going on his knees to Barbara. So, and yet.
Well, you learn to talk now.
I've got 2 minutes. Is there any questions? Yes.
How old were your parents, Billy?
How old?
Were your parents when they met Barbara?
Oh, that's a good point. 56. Dad he was about 10 years, about 65, and my mother younger. A bit younger, sorry, about that. Yeah, they at first, of course, they were devoted to Jesus, and they remained devoted to Jesus. I'm not saying they didn't, but at the same time, at first, there was disbelief. Oh, come on, For the first time, there was actually a little dissension in the family. Here I was saying that Jesus had returned. He was back on earth, and they, very nicely, but sort of said, "You're haywire. You need whatever."
Just in mentioning that Baba would sit at the tree that Baba John sat under, and to kind of visualize that, because now they've got it covered in silver or something. It's not there.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
How big a tree was that?
It was huge, very large.
Was that the one by the river?
Yes, it's in the film. You'll see the film and you'll see Barbara seated on a
It's
chair.
all silver. It's the one by the river.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Why? What do you mean? Oh, I'm sorry. No, not the
Yeah,
tree.
that's right.
Not where his tomb is. His shrine is. Or her shrine, I should say. No. No, it's by the river.
The
Sorry.
tree is still there, isn't
Yeah,
it?
the tree is still there, yeah. I haven't seen it for years, so I wouldn't know, but I assume it is.
Now it's all closed up now. You have to have. They're almost impossible to come into front garden now anymore.
Ah,
Wow.
yeah.
They've done it. So they can make money from everything they can do.
When did that happen?
Yeah. That happened a couple of years ago.
Oh, okay.
Last time I was there, it was about 4 years ago.
All right. Any other questions? All right, Jay Barber.